Down the Biscayne.
Yikes. 5 on the floor. Ride for my dogs. Where here's the thing. You can check the score. Hustle hard, couple scars, wearing bubble frogs. Just like Butler said, you in trouble, y'all. Kept the floor playing. Got it all banned. Y'all seen the block. Stop with one hand. And Pat we trust. It's power, have the guts. We're here to bring the heat. Y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, and Alex Toledo, plus others from the 5 Reasons Sports Network.
Welcome back to 5 on the Floor. No, this is not Ethan J. Skolnick. No, this is not Leif Sylvander. They weren't available. Leif is at the Hornets game with his family. Ethan is at the Dolphins game that's going on right now, which is why we're trying to do a quick wrap-up, quick post-game pod for you guys after a 116-114 Heat win in Charlotte. It got a little murky there. It looked like they might have had another one of those fourth quarters where we end up talking on the show about how this is a running theme for the season after it was such a strength for them last season. Luckily, they were able to come out with the win, but we're still outscored by 10 in the fourth quarter by a lowly Hornets team missing LaMelo Ball, missing their best player. And obviously the Heat are missing Bam and Tyler. But look, you got a lot of, if you just look at the box score, it looks a lot prettier than I think it did tonight, just because it was kind of a high offense game. When you look at the offensive ratings in the half court and overall, like both teams played pretty games when you just talk about production and efficiency. But it was one where I feel like for the Heat, it shouldn't have got to that point in the first place where you need to just kind of eke it out at the end. I feel like there was some mistakes made, but you look at Jimmy Butler, 23 points, Caleb 20, Duncan, who we'll get to in a little bit, 24, Jaquez 18, Love 19. Like they're consistently getting a lot from a lot of different guys, and so it's a good thing for them, and that's why it makes it even harder to get to this next segment here with the Rock Esports Gamer of the Night.
And now on 5 on the Floor, it's time for the Gamer of the Night, sponsored by Rock Esports Center, the place to eat, drink, and play all day. Host your next birthday party with them. Located at 15305 South Dixie Highway in Palmetto Bay. They've got a 5,500 square foot state-of-the-art center equipped with all the high-end power. Play all-day passes available for just $25, but if you mention 5 Reasons, it's just $20. So mention 5 Reasons or 5 RSN. You get to play all day for $20. And now, the Gamer of the Night.
Brady, I want to get to you and stop talking here, but how do you choose between all these nice, cute stat lines from tonight? Like, you really got a lot of them between Jimmy's 23, 4, and 8. A lot of these guys not only gave you scoring, but gave you kind of stat-stuffing stat lines. Who stood out to you tonight out of all these guys?
Yeah, it is tough because it's honestly surprising, to your point when you were talking about it. We talked about it before the show, how the stat lines do look this pretty in a game that I don't feel like was pretty at all. Like I feel like there was just a lot of things that went wrong throughout the game. It was in the mud a little bit. But it was just two bad defenses. It felt like going at each other tonight. A Heat bad defense was playing on the floor. And obviously Charlotte is not a good defense. But I'll say, I think you have to give it to Duncan Robinson. And I know it's the easy thing to say because he had the most points in the team. But you're seeing this stuff where the efficiency is still carrying over. And I know last game that wasn't the case. This isn't a guy you're expecting to be great like this every single game. So that you could kind of warrant that, I guess, a little bit. But 8 of 14 shooting and 5 of 9 from 3. And we've talked so much about the stuff inside the arc, which he was doing a lot of in this game, where he was doing some of that stuff when he was getting in the lane. But the big thing to me was the efficiency from 3, where you're seeing him get back on track in that way. He had a shot in this game that I've never seen him that open in my entire life. Like, just he was sitting in the corner and Kyle found him and there was nobody near him. And that kind of shows just what they were dealing with on this Charlotte team. Like, winning by 2 and squeaking out a win probably isn't the greatest thing in the world. But you're in a position right now with the podcast we've been doing, you need to take every win you can get. You take every single one of these with the starters that you're without and all of this stuff. So you'll take it. But I thought Duncan Robinson did good things. I thought he got them on track in their offense. The biggest thing other than the scoring is that thing I mentioned. Like, they ran an action to begin the game where they kept spamming him off like a little curl with Orlando, and it led into a 3. Then the next time they ran it led into him passing to Orlando. Orlando got pulled, and it was a foul. And it was like they just find these little pockets of the game where they find an action for Duncan and just spam it. And when you're in this position where you don't have Tyler, don't have Bam, you don't have all these different players, it's like you have to do that at this point. And having Duncan as that hub is important. So just keep finding ways to get him in a rhythm, I think, is important. And it's kind of another one of those games that kind of logs onto his stat sheet in the season.
I mean, I think at this point, there's no doubt from anybody involved, whether inside the organization or like within like the fans, that Duncan is certified. Like it's just obvious what he does at this point, and it's like he's gotten so good at the other things too that it's just like it's a guarantee that you know that even if the three isn't falling at a high level, he's going to give you other stuff. And I think he's just gotten so good at playing off of his own gravity and realizing that, you know, don't ever pick up the ball. Just keep it moving. He's always moving. And like when something isn't there, he'll reset and try to go around the screen again and you know, try to create another advantage. And Duncan is just so damn good at knowing when the advantage is there, when it isn't, and when to keep it going. Like his feel for the game is insane now, mixed with the confidence that he has in his own ability to get to the rim and finish, or to, you know, get into the paint and make the next pass. Like he's just out there making reads, and he's so comfortable out there that none of this feels fluky. It's not like, oh, Duncan Robinson shooting 60% from 3, and it's none of this feels fluky. Like he's still an elite shooter, but he's doing all this other stuff, and it's just been so huge for an offense that is still ranked pretty low in the league when it comes to rim attempts and rim field goal percentage. So the stuff that Duncan is doing, getting their offense going, I think is a huge part of, you know, what I was talking about earlier. When you just look at the box score stuff, with part of the reason why so many other guys you know, are getting to these good looks is that like they're constantly getting the offense moving because of Duncan. So no, I'm not gonna, you know, just give all the credit to him, but he has been absolutely just, you know, phenomenal for them. And I think between him, Jaquez, and somebody else who I want to get to here next, like I think he's been one of those consistent positives for them. And if you see me laughing here out of nowhere, I'm trying to keep it straight, my face straight, because I watched the game with Giancarlo Navas and Pete tonight, and he's over there doing his show at the same time, yelling his ass off. I don't know why, because Kyle Lowry had a bad night. So excuse me if you see me laugh a little bit. But just as far as this game, Brady, what, you know, I'm gonna get into specifics for another player soon. But did you have any main takeaways from this game? Just like generalized takeaways?
I mean, it's hard to take main general takeaways from a team that's just not healthy and they just look kind of all over the place. But I mean, the individual stuff I think is important. I think that's important to note. Before we talk about the positives, and I know we're going to get into a certain player, I think number one, the night from Kyle Lowry, as you mentioned, and Josh Richardson, when you have your guard room that we were kind of battling it out between those two, talk about who's going to be the starting point guard, and they're going, what is it, 1 for 13? I think Kyle, it was originally 0 for 12, and then Kyle hit the one late to get them 1 for 13. Like, it's just problematic on nights like this. Like, I think with Josh, I think you know that there's going to be a bit of inefficiency throughout the season. But I think some of the shots you're watching from Kyle specifically is kind of a little all over the place, just the shot diet and stuff, when you feel like he's a guy that should be the one settling your shots and getting you the right shots in your half court. And it felt like it was kind of all over the place. But on the other side of that, because I know that we're going to go to another player in a second, as you mentioned, but Caleb Martin, I think it deserves, he probably was my second choice for gamer of the night, just because his consistency, him finding a flow. I thought in the beginning of that game, the way he was putting pressure on the rim, like, it's one thing to say to put pressure on the rim, but he's doing it in so many different ways, and he's doing it with ease. Like, I watch it, he's throwing a dribble combo behind the back. He's at the rim and he's laying it in. He's just bullying people, putting his shoulder down and drawing a foul or getting an and one. And it's like, okay, he can do that too. But the finishing specifically, and we talked about that a lot this season, his layup packages, he's just been a really good finisher so far this year. So I think in terms of, you know, games like this where you're squeaking out a win and there's not a lot of big time takeaways, you need guys like that to find their flow. And I feel like this is another one of those games where he's kind of logging that in the fold a little bit. So I thought he was an important player tonight. And the last one I'll say is Orlando Robinson. Like, he's finding himself a little bit of a role here. And I'm not saying, because he did not have a crazy stat line, but some of the stuff he's doing that's kind of jumbled up over the last few games, where defensively, like, he is held up in the post and against like big players like really well. Like, he's been getting blocks on guys where he doesn't even jump. He just uses his body, just gives them as little space as possible, and he's throwing the ball back. And offensively, I feel like he's just playing his role, screening, offensive rebound. He's active on the boards, does all of that little stuff that they all Miami wanted in a backup big or somebody to fill in was somebody that doesn't make mistakes and doesn't get in the way of their other players. And he's doing that exactly what they wanted. So I think that's just an important thing to mention.
Yeah, I think Orlando's been pretty solid for him, and yeah, good job on mentioning Caleb. I think he's been, ever since that first Cleveland game a while back, I feel like he really hasn't looked back. Where not every game has been like A+ or anything like that, but I just feel like he's been generally like very good and has looked more like himself. And especially with what you talk about, the finishing, like it's nothing new to any Heat fan. He is the best, most creative finisher on the team, right? Where if you're not necessarily talking about percentage, but more like who has the most amount of finishes, who can, because the guy is really just there like looking to get up in the air and then figure out how they're contesting to then react and finish. Like he's a natural at that. He's and I'm happy for him, man. And just like taking a quick look at his stats for this season, obviously this is probably not including tonight. Shout out dunksandthrees.com, but like he is back to he's taking a career high attempts at the rim per 75 possessions, and the number, it's a career high, but the number is just a little bit higher than it was in the first season with the Heat. And I think a lot of that has to do with the role that he was in then and the role he's in now, where obviously he's got a lot more usage now, and that shows in the numbers too. But coming off the bench, and this is something that we've talked about forever, is that he gets to attack the rim a little bit more. Whereas even though the lineups with him last year as a starter were positive, he didn't get to show off the finishing quite as much, I feel, when kind of having to defer to some of the other guys in the starters, whereas him just coming in and being a part of these bench units, I feel like he's getting more of a role there, and the usage is way up when you just talk about straight up usage percentage, and he's getting up a lot of shots at the rim, and I think that's what they need from him. And like you look at that like what they're getting from him at the rim over the past whatever it is, like 3 weeks to a month or so. You look at Jaquez, what he's been giving you as far as guys who can get to the rim, like that's and Duncan, like as we were just talking about, like these have been huge for their offense. Now I just wish they would convert a little bit more, right? Like another night where they don't convert well at the rim. They've been down this year in the mid range, like percentage wise. The volume is still there, of course. And again, like their threes fall. They shot 43% from tonight from three. They don't take an insane amount, but they've been pretty consistent with that this year. And I feel like that's kind of been getting them through, because I like the process a lot of the times. And I feel like they're getting more into the paint than the past, but the conversion rate just still isn't there. But again, I want to shout out Rock Esports Center. I don't think I did that before. I let the imaging do the work for me, but shout out to them, the only gaming lounge in Miami. Go check them out. They've got a ton of stuff to offer for you, Rock Esports. And now I want to get to the Aggressive Insurance Play of the Night.
And now it's time for the Insurance by Lynette Play of the Night, sponsored by InsuranceByLynette.com and Aggressive Insurance Agency. You can reach out to our friend Lynette at 954-581-8800. That's 954-581-8800, or InsuranceByLynette.com. That's InsuranceByLynette.com with 2 N's and 2 T's. Your best play for auto insurance, homeowners insurance, condo insurance, life insurance, or a retirement program. Reach out to Lynette at InsuranceByLynette.com.
So Brady, like you said earlier, I feel like this is just not like this is not going to be like one of the more memorable games of the season. If you look back on it, like the end made it fun because it was kind
Nobody's
of
remembering this. Nobody.
Yeah, because I'm always somebody who's like, I enjoy close games, so them making it close like that, it's always been a conflicting thing with me, because like you want the Heat to just close them out and do well, and then our podcast downloads are doing well, but at the same time, I enjoy the chaos of close games, right? I enjoy some stakes in my regular season basketball, spicing it up. So that part of it was kind of fun because I didn't actually feel like they were going to give it up, but it was risky there, right? And again, without Bam and Tyler on the road, like nothing is guaranteed in the NBA. They've lost to the Hornets plenty of times before, and they have Ish Smith. So I felt like maybe all the odds were stacked against the Heat tonight. But in all seriousness, what I'm getting to here is there was some clutch plays tonight, and I want to lob you up here because I think there was one that was maybe the most timely of them all.
Yeah, so Brandon Miller hit a 3 that basically cut the game down to 4, 109, 105 with 2:30 to go. And it really felt like that was the moment when the tide was really shifting. Like it felt like they were hitting that offensive wall. It was like, what are they going to do next? And they kind of just had Kyle dribbling at the right, like kind of high up on the right wing where he was just kind of dribbling around. And then he just sends like a rocket over to his left to Kevin Love, who just pulls that thing and he knocks it down and they go up 7. And they kept having those plays and the Hornets kept answering, but it felt like that one was just kind of the one that was like, for one, it was a big play to put them up in that situation. But it's the fact of down the stretch now they have to worry about Kevin Love even more so on these pick and pops. And the biggest thing is we just kind of wanted an excuse as well to talk about Kevin Love tonight because we haven't been able to mention him. He's kind of the one guy that I'm like, I walk away from this game about that I'm kind of talking the most about. 7 of 11 from the field, 4 of 8 from 3. He's shooting the ball extremely well. And that's not even talking about, that's not even high up on his radar in terms of things that we are usually talking about with him. The rebounding the other night and these outlet passes. And, late in the second quarter to finish the half, he had back-to-back above the break threes just because they were so worried about the drives and they just kind of kicked it out. He had 2 good looks from 3. And then he gets it was like a steal of some kind a little before half court. He throws a dart to Caleb on the run and he dunks it. That's an 8-point run, like with a snap of a finger, like that quickly. And he's just an energy shifter. Like it just really seems like the guys are playing really well with him. His connection with Jimmy is just really, really good. And it was funny because I remember last year when they acquired him, we talked about it. We're like, this could be an interesting one because Jimmy's good with pick and pop guys. But I didn't think about it from the perspective as much about the way Kevin impacts Jimmy with the way that his passing does. And I'm not even talking about the full court stuff. Like he had a pass in this game where he threw it over the top to Jimmy, like looped it perfectly over the top at the rim. And it's like they just have a really good balance with the high-low stuff, with the full court stuff, with the pick and pops. That those two guys just have a really good connection. He's just an energy guy. And the fact that he's in really good shape and the fact that he could play plug and play minutes and play in these different roles and play in these different spots and play at the 4 next to Orlando if need be, but also play at the 5. He's just an easy guy to play with, and he's playing so well right now. The issue is, and this is probably a whole other topic, but is this type of play in December and November going to burn him out for the playoffs? And now they're looking around of who's going to play backup 5 or whatever when Bam's not in. I guess they'll cross that bridge when they get there. I think in the start of the new year, they need to find games where they're resting Love, and goes back to my Orlando point. I think it makes it pretty easy to rest Kevin Love with the way Orlando's playing. So that'll be something to monitor. But for now, Kevin Love deserves a lot of credit.
No doubt. Shout out to him. Another big night, especially when you're just talking about somebody that you have for essentially the veteran minimum. It's a little bit more than that. Like he got like the 120% raise or whatever. But you talk about like getting value out of guys, and again, not to just look at guys as just like what they make, but you're getting a lot of value out of not only K-Love, but Josh Richardson, who didn't have a great night tonight, but that's just more of a general thing. I just think K-Love has been great and has extended like all the goodwill that he earned last season with what he did in the playoff run more than anything. Because I thought he was like okay during the regular season after they first acquired him, but there was like they weren't necessarily like winning those minutes, and that was kind of a running thing. And then they ended up needing him for the playoffs and specific big matchups there ended up being huge. So I was wondering, like coming into this season, is he going to have a regression year where he's not going to have the fresh legs anymore? Maybe he's not a full-time starting 4, and that just kind of went out the window quick. Like he went from being a starter to their backup 5 quick, and now it's just been like, okay, that is the perfect role for him. He is easily their best backup 5. Like there hasn't been a question about it. And then like whether you're just talking about like what watching the game, the eye test stuff, like he is hitting the threes, the outlet passes that people talk about with him. It's not like some exaggerated thing. Like he just does it every time he grabs a rebound. He's a transition player without moving in transition. Like he is finding the guy like a damn quarterback out there, and it's no exaggeration. He just does this stuff. He positionally he's good. Like he gets in the way and draws charges. Like he's still grabbing rebounds out there. And just looking at his raw stat line ever since Bam got hurt, so including the first Pacers game where Bam got hurt, Love has averaged 12.6 rebounds and 4 assists since then. So nothing crazy, but it's like, he's up in the stat line. He's, doing exactly what you would want to see of him. And that's including tonight's stat line, by the way. Shout out StatMuse. But, doing it on 59% from the field and 48 from three in these 5 games. Just to give you an example, like the guy's been fantastic. Not only that, like you look at the lineup data, and that's sorry for going on so long here. Just with Jimmy, they're plus 9.91 net rating. That's per 100 possessions. That's fantastic. Also, like you said, without Jimmy, plus 6.49 net rating. So he's just been fantastic for them with and without Jimmy. And I particularly love the pairing, but he's just been a positive overall. I was telling Giancarlo here, like you'd think that him scaling up his role and would maybe show off some of these warts a little bit more. And it's like, maybe people are not as high on him, but it's been the opposite. Like he's been great. He's been great. He's been exactly what they need. Like there's only so much you can do without Bam. It's a big drop off, like we've talked about. But K-Love's been great, and so that was a clutch 3 tonight. And shout out to Aggressive Insurance. Check out insurancebythenet.com. And shout out to her for always being one of our most active participants, whether in Discord, playback, when we go live, all of that. So shout out to Lynette. I want to end the show with the Eric Rubenstein injury report.
And now it's time for the official 5 on the Floor injury report, sponsored by our friend Eric Rubenstein, the personal injury attorney. Born and raised in Lauderdale, Florida, lives in Miami, went to St. Thomas. He's a South Florida guy and a huge Miami Heat fan. But the important thing is he can help you get your money that you deserve when something happens to you. So reach out to our guy, Eric Rubenstein. Again, ericrubenstein.com, or Ask About Me, I Got You, on Instagram. And now, the injury report.
Okay, so not a lot of new stuff here, right? Bam was still out tonight. Tyler was still out tonight. Haywood Highsmith was out tonight. Kyle Lowry was questionable leading up to this game. What was it, his back? Brady, remind me.
Yeah, I think it was back spasms.
Okay, yeah, and he definitely looked more conservative tonight. Don't really want to get into too much injury stuff here because I don't think anything is necessarily too. There's no hot topic here. Like it's nothing's new here. But just want to shout out Eric Rubenstein, personal injury attorney. Go check out ericrubenstein.com, and I think his Instagram handle is. I'm gonna mess it up now. I think Ethan said it in the
Ask About Me, I Got You.
Ask About Me, I Got You. That's what it is. Thank you, Brady. He's everywhere. He's everywhere. He's really tuned into the Miami local scene. So shout out Eric Rubenstein. But in general, I don't think there's anything new there. I just kind of wanted to get your takeaways on how this team, and this could just be like a quick hitter type of thing, on how this team has fared without Bam. Just kind of overall, whether it's defense or just in general, I guess relative to what you thought they'd be without Bam in these 5 games. And the one last thing I wanted to say about Caleb that I forgot to before, that I think is kind of interesting, and I'm going to monitor as the season goes on, by the way. Another stat that dunks and threes produces, and it's one of these catch-all analytics, and I think a lot of people kind of look at it as better than some of the others because it accounts for more things. But essentially, if you just look at his offensive estimated plus minus and his overall estimated plus minus, it's kind of right now matching up with 2 seasons ago for K-Love, which is when he finished runner-up for 6th Man of the Year behind Tyler Hero. So just impact-wise, K-Love, like these stats are kind of telling you he's more or less at that level. And he's, by the way, giving you a much higher assist percentage and lower turnover percentage in that time. So shout out to K-Love. I just wanted to give you that last morsel of information there, because I thought it was kind of interesting that he's right on track with that season. But to get back to the point, because it does involve K-Love, how do you think they fared overall without Bam? And without, of course, Tyler and Highsmith as well. It's not just Bam, but just in these past few games.
Yeah, I'll just stick with this point because I think we've hit on a lot of the individual stuff. I just keep coming back to the point, and we did this podcast where we talked about where they stand without Bam, but it's more so I keep coming back to it, watching more of these games. The point of attack defense really has fallen off a cliff without Bam. And I'm glad you mentioned Highsmith because he is a part of that perimeter defense and point of attack stuff because they obviously put him on a ton of guards. But to the fact that I just didn't expect it to fall apart like this. And I felt like it was going to be more so about the second line of defense. Like it was going to be like we're going to be talking about, well, they're getting picked apart because Love's in a blitz. So they're getting picked apart because Orlando in drop is getting picked on. It hasn't really been that. Like it's been more so just straight up breakdowns on the perimeter where whether it's Kyle, whether it's Josh, whether it's anybody, and I'm not even talking about specifics, it's like it's happening all over the place. And when you're looking at a Charlotte team, like yeah, you shouldn't have that problem specifically. Like I can understand on a night when you look at this roster and say, oh, well, maybe they couldn't score, which they were able to in this game. But when you're able to get, when you're just getting like allowing them just to walk into the lane time and time again and making things easy for this type of team, that can catch up to you. So they're lucky they were able to escape, and that's why I said the word escape before, because they just keep having that happen. And the other thing is, which we didn't probably talk about long enough, but I think we're probably sick of talking about it. The fourth quarter collapses continue, where the numbers in the fourth quarter are just absolutely insane. And it's hard to track because there's nothing that's linear there because, before when they're healthy, they have the lineup at the beginning of the fourth quarter where it's the 4 bench guys with Bam and then or Orlando with him out. And that lineup's actually been pretty good this season. Like that fourth quarter lineup has been good. And then when they go into that closing mode, it's been problematic. But it's just as a whole, like it just feels like even when you look at the numbers, if we dumb it down to the second half only, it's been bad. Like they just have this different type of energy in that range. So this is going to be a thing we talk about forever. We're going to talk about clutch games. We're going to talk about fourth quarter collapses. We're going to talk about point of attack defense. Even when you think any of that is fixed, it never really is. So that's kind of my main takeaway.
Yeah, and yeah, all that stuff continues, and it's funny because we did that one episode where Ethan asked us if essentially their perimeter guys are Bam merchants, which I thought was a little bit over the top, but I get that he was just kind of being a little bit facetious. But it's this hasn't done that great for them, like in that aspect of like arguing for them, like no, they're better than that, because I do still think that, but I do think like there is a certain degree of like being used to what Bam does for you, and on top of the drop off, because like these, Kevin, Orlando, Thomas, they're all trying their best. The drop off is what it is. It's ginormous, and anything will back that up. Whether you just watch or whether you look at the stats, it's a huge drop off. But so it's like I feel like it's both things. It's like there's a huge drop off, and they're just making more mistakes. And I feel like maybe got a little bit too comfortable with all the different ways that Bam cleans things up, on the backside for them. The other thing, I did a quick search for, looking at their half court defense ever since Bam has been out. So obviously only been 5 games. I'm not sure if this includes tonight, but 22nd in half court defense, in half court defensive rating since Bam got hurt. Not good. Not good, I would say. It's supposed to be a defense first team. You knew that there will be some defensive warts popping up without Bam. They've got to fix that, and they've just got to hold it down until he comes back, or at least Haywood Highsmith. Like they need Haywood Highsmith back too. I think we probably got to include him into the defensive drop off here because he was playing really well for them on that end. But anyways, Brady, I've gone on long enough. Shout out to you for coming on. Shout out to Eric Rubenstein. Shout out to insurancebyLynette.com and ericrubenstein.com. Shout out to the Rock Esports Center. Look forward to the next watch party, which hasn't been scheduled yet, but I'm thinking the next tournament is going to have more stakes to it, and I think that'll be unveiled later in the future. Thank you guys for tuning in. There'll be more from us coming in the future, but we just wanted to get back to this Dolphins game. Thank you for tuning in, and have a good night, everybody.